Hey guys, what's up? It's Jay. We're live tonight. We're going to be discussing what you think is the scariest haunted house film of all time. Now, we went to the group, we went to Jay versus Horror, and we asked around, and we got some great comments. We got about 50 great comments from people who, told us what they thought the scariest horror film ever set in a haunted house was. And so I thought it was a fun topic. We'd have some fun tonight. So guys, leave your comments over here. Scariest haunted house movie. And if you hear us miss a few as we're going along, let us know which ones you think people have missed, and we'll get started. Let me know if you guys can hear me. If there's some kind of problem where somebody can't hear me, let me know. It's happened in the past where the audio wasn't great and I had to start and restop, but hopefully that's not the case here. Let's get started, guys. Reading off from the list here on the J versus Horror group on Facebook. If you're not in there, go check it out, guys, because we do lots of fun stuff there, and we got like 27,000 members. If you're into horror movies, it's a great place to go discuss horror stuff, and people generally respond pretty good. We get thousands of responses to some of the posts we have in there. But what's the scariest haunted house movie ever? And our first comment comes from Josh O'Neill, and he says, at the time in 2000, I checked out this movie called The St. Francisville Experiment. It was a found footage film about an old house in Louisiana. It got a lot of hate, but for what it was, I didn't think it was bad at all. So, yeah, that's a pretty good movie, and I just saw that one about 4 or 5 years ago, to be honest. George Charleston says, hey, what's up, George? I'm assuming everybody can hear us if you're saying hello. Maybe if you can't hear us, somebody will at least leave us a comment to tell us that you can't hear us. That would be great. Next up comes Emily Dunlap, and Emily says she's not a huge fan of haunted house movies, but she would say The Shining because it's a masterpiece. And I did give Emily a little bit of crap here and told her that, it's not technically a haunted house movie. It's it's a haunted hotel. It's like Lutz Family Vacation, right? It's like the Lutz family from the Amityville Horror Go on Vacation. George says the Amityville house. Good one, George. I'm assuming everybody can hear me because nobody's telling me that they can't. I'm going to check real quick because we're not getting any response from you guys about whether it can be heard or not. So I have to go look, which is sad. All right. Just give me a second here, guys. I just want to make sure it's working because otherwise, kind of makes me look dumb, kind of like this does. But let's see here what we got going. Let me see. That's why I always ask, because it's easier if people just tell me what they can hear than it is for me to go watch my own video and see if I can hear myself. But it is what it is, right? Hopefully, if I ever get to it, I'll find out if I can hear myself. Hopefully, if I ever get to it, I'll find out if I can hear myself. Now, I know it's working. All right, that's all I wanted to find out. Let's keep going with the comments. Two Fallon says hello, and Two Fallon says Funhouse 1981. I'm not really sure if that's a haunted house movie. Wasn't that just kind of like a weird slasher? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it was. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it was. All right, here we go. Tommy Wood says, I really like the original, The Haunting. The black and white photography really adds something to it. Emily says Reincarnation, but it's a hotel too. I really liked the Haunting of Hill House series on Netflix. Russell De Silva. Russell's a cool dude. He's an international film critic. He says The Exorcist all day, every day, closely followed by Poltergeist, The Conjuring, Lights Out, Insidious, The Amityville Horror, and a Bollywood film called Haunted 3D. Of course, The Shining would be right up there with The Exorcist if hotels were considered. Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought of The Exorcist as a haunted house movie. Have you guys had that thought before, that The Exorcist is a haunted house movie? It never dawned on me like that, but it makes sense. I mean, because it all happens in the same location and all that. Whether the house is haunted or not, I don't know, but I know that it may be because, or it may have been that maybe how she got possessed because she was playing with the Ouija board, right? And there was a spirit nearby that started talking to her, this demonic thing called Captain Howdy, right? Randy Johnson says poltergeist for sure. And Ryan Willick says The Shining is the obvious one, although technically it's a hotel, so that doesn't count. There's an old movie called The Evictors by the guy that did The Town That Dreaded Sundown, and it was creepy as hell. I remember that one, man. Good pick. Nice pick there, Ryan. Samuel Cross says The House on Haunted Hill series was pretty tops for me. Now, series, what do you mean the series? Was there a House on Haunted Hill series, or you just mean I know they did it, the original, then there's the remake, and then there is a sequel to the remake that's not terrible, but it's not really good either. So maybe that's what he means by that. Yeah, Leah McLaughlin says House on Haunted Hill series also. So I guess that's what they mean is a series of movies, the franchise of movies. Uh, she says also she loves Rose Red and The Shining. Yeah, Rose Red is a decent haunted house movie. I did a underrated haunted house movie thing here a while back, and a lot of people commented Rose Red. I was super surprised at the people that love that movie. And yeah, so I went and investigated Rose Red for myself and read about it for about a day and a half about all the stuff they went through to make that film and everything. Pretty interesting. And you got to admit, Rose Red has a great cast. Let's move on. Lassie McKell Salampa says Changeling. Or is that a haunted house movie at all? Maybe a ghost story after all. Yeah, I don't know. Is Changeling a haunted house movie or is it just a ghost story? I don't know. I tend to think it follows the haunted house tradition a little bit. I mean, the ghost is in the house, so the house is haunted, right? Uh, I guess you could make an argument it's the situation that's haunted, but I think it's the house to an extent. And a lot of people don't remember, but there's a movie that came out 3 years before The Changeling called The Psychic from Lucio Fulci. And I think the reason why people don't remember it that much, or the reason why it's so underrated, is because Fulci usually did really big gore movies, and The Psychic doesn't have a lot of gore in it. It's just kind of it's an interesting giallo. It's not the classic giallo with the imagery of the guy with the black gloves and he's going around killing models or prostitutes or whatever like that. It's not that type of setup. It's a very different mystery, but it's still, I guess, technically a giallo. If you have to go back to see, a lot of people get hung up on like what a giallo is, the imagery and all that stuff. But for me, it can't just be about that because those books that the giallo films are based on covered a lot more ground than just sleazy horror, right? Or sleazy slasher stuff. But anyway, let's move on. I don't want to get too hung up on all that. Lex Oteo says in response to that, though, that he had this discussion the other day, and the main consensus was that The Changeling is a ghost story and not a haunted house story, since the ghost is shown to be active in places other than just the house. And that's what I said, too. It seems like maybe it's a thing where it's a haunted situation instead of a haunted house, right? Or a haunted place. But anyway, so we're moving on. And Terry O'Brien says The Haunting, the original one. Everybody keeps saying the original one. I have a great story about The Haunting that I'm going to share later, but we'll save it for later. Let's flip back over here. And George says, I like the Lizzie Borden house. Okay. Jay Phillips says, hi, you guys. And Two Fallon says, is The Sixth Sense considered a haunted house movie because it was scary? Now, I don't know if that would be considered a haunted house movie. You know what? Actually, I don't think that the haunted house is the main part of the story, but honestly, that house is haunted, right? The house that the little kid lives in is haunted. Most places are haunted, is what we find out in The Sixth Sense. But yeah, there's like a couple that murdered each other or something, an old couple that murdered each other that haunt that house that he lives in. So yeah, I guess you could count The Sixth Sense. I never thought about it like that before, but that's a good pick. Good one too, Fallon. And Tim Vanciletti says The Shining. A lot of people said The Shining, even though The Shining took place in a hotel. Uh, Next up, we have Rourke Devereaux from Evil Jelly. The Evil Jelly podcast, guys, go check it out. Great horror podcast. These guys are awesome. And Rourke says Poltergeist, The Changeling, The Shining. For me personally, is probably Poltergeist. I think Poltergeist is a pretty good pick. And I guess you could, I would assume that there are more houses in that complex that are haunted than just theirs, right? It's interesting. It seems like it would be more than just the one house that would be haunted. Like multiple houses should be haunted in that situation, but they don't really mention what if anything happened to the other people. Um, Nathan Bartleball from the Phantom Galaxy, another great podcast. And Phantom Galaxy does a little bit of everything. They do fantasy, sci-fi, horror, animation. They talk about all kinds of stuff at Phantom Galaxy, but it's a great podcast. And Nathan Bartleball says it's a three-way tie between the Changeling, excuse me, Ghost Watch, and Session 9. And I don't know, like, can we count Session 9? Because Session 9's it's a mental institution, right? It's a closed mental institution. But yeah, I guess whatever, we'll throw it in there. It's a great ghost movie, regardless of whether it's a house or not, and a great haunted place movie, I guess. Ghost Watch is interesting, and that's a good pick from Nathan. I recommend you guys check out Ghost Watch if you ever get the chance. It's like a little story behind it, kind of a war of the worlds type thing. Where when people saw this, it came out on Halloween night over in the UK, and when people were watching it, they thought it was live and they thought it was real. And it's kind of had like I said, like a world of worlds type effect on people, where they thought what they were seeing was real. They started calling the police departments. They started calling the stations that the show was airing on, that the movie was airing on, and yeah, people were stirred up about that one pretty good. So it's a great story. It's also a fun watch too. So yeah, Ghost Watch, that's a good one. Great picks there, Nathan. And next up we have Kevin Patterson. Kevin Patterson says The Innocents. I was waiting for somebody to bring that one up. The Innocents, The Others, and Hell House LLC. All three great picks, man. Definitely The Innocents. That story's been done a bunch of times, The Turn of the Screw. They just did it again, I think, a year ago, called The Turn or something like that. But yeah, The Turn of the Screw is the name of that story, and it's been done several times. But The Innocents it's one of those classic movies that I held out on for a long time. But when I finally watched it, I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. And it is the best version of the turn of the screw. Uh, the Others is an interesting pick because of the way that movie plays out, and I think that's a good pick too because of the way that movie plays out. And Hell House LLC, I like the first one a lot. Right, the original Hell House LLC. It's got some nasty little tricks to it, and it's a little creepy. Right, the other two don't hold up as well, but that one is great. And he also goes on to say Greg Bench. Oh wait. Wrong one. That was Kevin Patterson. Now we have Greg Bench. Greg is a movie buff, and he often winds up on podcasts and shows like this as the guest host. Greg says The Innkeepers from 2011 was enjoyable from Ty West. I used to call him T.I. West. I didn't know. I thought it was T.I. West because I've never seen anybody spell their name Ty like that. But yeah, it's Ty West. The Innkeepers from 2011 was enjoyable. Yeah, I like that movie a lot. It's a kind of a slow burn, and the first like couple segments of it don't seem to be as enjoyable until they're all connected at the end. I think I liked it a lot though. Yeah, it's a good one. House on Haunted Hill. He doesn't say whether it's the original or the remake. Knowing Greg, I'm going to say he's going with the original. And 13 Ghosts. I don't know if he's going with the original or the remakes here, but he also says House from Japan, 1977. I believe it's called Hasu or whatever their word for house is. But yeah, that's an interesting film there. Definitely nuts. Lex Teo says the original House on Haunted Hill, if that counts, even though there's no ghost in it. Spoiler alert. Yeah, there is no ghost in the original House on Haunted Hill, but it's still a creepy movie. It's very effective, and I would argue it's even more effective than the remake. Laffy Freborgen's son says 1408. That's a good one, even though that's a hotel. Rose Red and the Amityville Horror. And LaFay was the first person to say the Amityville Horror. And actually, I commented later that nobody had mentioned the Amityville Horror, but I missed that comment. So that's why. George Rogers. George does a James Bond podcast, Station 007. If you're into James Bond stuff, you're gonna love it. Uh, I like to listen to it. I'm a big James Bond fan. I always have been since I was a kid. And he says for scary, I go with Poltergeist. As the movie goes on, you can see the wear and strain the haunting has put on the Freelings, yeah, the family. I also love Rose Red. So Rose Red is getting a lot of mentions again tonight, guys. And I said it's just one of those movies that surprises me because it's it wasn't even originally um, what was it like Stephen King got this idea from the Winchester House, right? If I'm not mistaken, and just kind of wrote it into a make believe story from there. And but it also has like Annie, who's really close to Danny from The Shining. I mean, like for me, it was okay. I liked it. It's got a decent cast. It's a decent Stephen King miniseries, but it's not my favorite. It's not even I know that I like The Stand more, and I know that I like it more. But for me, this one's kind of somewhere along the lines of the Tommy Knockers or the 2004 version of Salem's Lot. I like it. I like to watch it, but it's not my favorite. But a lot of people do love Rose Red, and we're finding that out as we go along. And I was saying, I did a poll a while back and couldn't believe the answers or the amount of people who answered Rose Red. Shauna Reeves says there are a lot of good ones, but I think Poltergeist may be the best one. And yeah, that's pretty good. I think Poltergeist really hits home with a lot of people. It's a very good 80s film. It has, great effects and there's great minds behind it. Toby Hooper and Steven Spielberg. And just a great cast. Jo Beth Williams and Craig T. Nelson kill it in that. And yeah, it's a great film. I mean, even if you're not what I think for me as a kid, what got me was the scene with the clown, right? That clown terrified me, man. And it became one of those things where it was like, I don't want stuff sitting on my bed at night or sitting around my bed at night. Even I don't care if it's a Hulk Hogan Bash Buddy pillow or something. I don't want it around my bed at night. I just don't want it. Um, George Charleston says on the live feed, what about The Grudge? Hey, that's a good one, George. That's a damn good one, man. I don't think anybody else, well, we're not done yet, so I can't say for sure, but I don't think anybody else said The Grudge. And yeah, I mean, that's a truly haunted house to the point where if you even go there and leave, it doesn't matter. It's going to follow you around. It's like bubble gum stuck to the bottom of your shoe. It's going to get you. And simply Mrs. J. Wow, that's interesting. Says, what are your thoughts on Stephen King's Needful Things? Well, I love that. I mean, I read that book when it first. I don't think when it first came out, but I read it somewhere around, I would say, a year before the movie came out, or it may have been the year the movie came out. I don't know. I was 12 or 13 years old when I read it. I think the movie came out around that time, 92, 93. But yeah, the book is way better than the movie, and that doesn't need to be said because usually, almost always, the book is way better than the movie. But I still love the movie as a good horror film, and the performances are really good in it. I love Ed Harris as Alan Pangborn because Alan Pangborn is one of my favorite Stephen King characters. He pops up here and there everywhere when bad things are happening to other people. They even incorporated him into the Castle Rock series that they did. Um, but yeah, I like Needful Things a lot. Max von Sydow's performance as, is he the devil? I guess he's the devil, or is he an agent of the devil? He doesn't really say full on, but the way he, talks about like he was there when Jesus was crucified and stuff like that, it makes it sound like he is the full on devil. But we know how that works. Sometimes with devils and demons and stuff that can be confusing, and sometimes demons like to pretend they are the devil and things like that. But I think the point of Needful Things is making a deal with the devil, right? Or something similar at least. And we all have that one needful thing. I mean, I don't think where I think the translation gets lost a little bit is that a lot of the people's needful thing was represented as a physical thing, right? It would be a jacket or the baseball card or something like that. But what they really needed was not the object. What they really needed was the feeling that they were seeking from the object, right? And so I always thought it was interesting. I wish it could have been explored a little bit more on film than it was. Although there was that one really good scene. I think there were a few good scenes where you see how it broke people down, uh, especially the one with the little boy. You really see how what he needed, his needful thing, broke down his psyche, what he was willing to do to get it. And yeah, Needful Things is not a haunted house movie, but yeah, it's an interesting question, and I'm always willing to answer questions. Uh, George Charleston says, "Have you seen The Midnight Man?" I think I have seen that one. It's only a few years old. It's where they were playing that game, The Midnight Man, the two kids. All right, here we go. We are James Deadpool Phillips says, "Does the others count with Nicole Kidman?" It does. It does count. I believe it's kind of like I mean, I like the others, but I also saw it coming a mile away because it's just a reactionary film. Like we had the Sixth Sense, and then it's no surprise. Like the year after the Sixth Sense comes out, the others comes out. I think it might have been 18 months at the most. But it's kind of like the reverse Ghost thing, right? It was very easy to read for me early on, even though I still think it's a very good movie. It's very atmospheric, and it takes that whole like Victorian era, or not even Victorian era, it's later than that, but it has that old timey gothic feel to it, and it really has a great atmosphere. I love that feel that it gives off, even though, and that helps a lot with the end too, because you really feel like you understand, you're kind of like, this place seems like a ghost land in itself. But Matthew Pierman says, "I really like The Conjuring and Poltergeist." Yes, I think those are both great picks, and they're both great American movies just in general, because both Poltergeist and The Conjuring, they, outwardly, yes, they're horror films, but on the inside, they're really about family, right? They're really about families and families going through, traumatic experiences. And the only thing that really keeps them together is their love for each other, and that's expressed in both of those films. So, yeah. John Miara says Rose Red, another one for Rose Red. Marty Fleming says Ghost Watch. That's the second one we've had for Ghost Watch, which is cool because I didn't even think that many people knew about Ghost Watch. Um, let's take a look at the live feed. Yeah, simply Mrs. J says, "Have you taken a look at Doctor Sleep? Thoughts?" Yes, I read the book twice. I watched the movie. I love both. I love the book and the movie, and I don't even care. Look, I don't care that they changed the end, because I wanted to see all that stuff. I wanted to see the Overlook again and see Jack and all that stuff. Uh, I like the ending in the book, but you have to look at it like this: the original book, The Shining, and the original book, Doctor Sleep, are connected, and then the films, The Shining and the film Doctor Sleep, are connected. They are kind of the same story in a slightly different universe, right? Because in the book Doctor Sleep, there's an ending, but it's not like that. It's totally different because the Overlook Hotel's gone. I mean, it burned down at the end of the first book, so there's nothing there. It's a campground, I think, in Doctor Sleep is what it is. So yeah, it's interesting. I love that movie though. I love it. Abra Stone and Dan are two of my favorite characters of all time. The first time I read that book, Doctor Sleep, I cried my butt off. I read it again, and just enjoyed it again for the second time. I love it a lot. I think it's got a lot of great characters. It's probably my favorite Stephen King book, past, I'll say modern Stephen King book, because past the late '80s, where he was really writing great classic stuff. He struggled for a while, and then kind of had a comeback in the 2000s. I think he really started writing some great stuff again. Full Dark, No Stars is one of my favorite books of all time. Too. It's definitely my favorite King anthology. So yeah, you keep getting me off track here with the Stephen King stuff, but that's interesting. I like it. Scott Workman says Monster House. What a great pick, right? Yeah, that's a great one, Scott. Man, I love that movie. I like to watch Monster House on Halloween, and that's one I always recommend to people. You want to watch some good scary movies with your kids, but you don't really want to scare them. Monster House is good, and it's got a lot of heart to it. And I don't really think Monster House would scare any kids. Uh, Maybe, I don't know. What do you think, guys? Do you think Monster House would scare little kids? Surely not. I mean, maybe if they're like 4 or something. I don't know. I don't have kids, so I can't say. But Ursino Garcia Hernandez says Beyond Evil from 1988 is one of my favorites, but It's not a great movie, believe it or not. I actually think House on Haunted Hill from 1999 is terrifying in places, but inconsistent as an actual coherent film. And I like that little mini review there for House on Haunted Hill. I think that's pretty accurate, the 99 version. You look, you have Jeffrey Rush doing a great like Vincent Price impersonation, and after that, there's some good effects that work. I think I know what you're talking about. There's some scenes like where the ghost comes running up real quick, and they do that fast motion stuff that it works, especially in the theater. It works, but yeah, the film is pretty inconsistent overall, and I don't think it's as great. It's like I think the 13 Ghosts remake is better than 13 Ghosts because the original is very cheesy. But yeah, I don't think the remake of House on Haunted Hill is better than the original. I think the original is far better. Got the coffee going. Miss J says my apologies. Don't apologize. I love to talk horror. I'll talk about anything you want to talk about. I'm not scared to talk about anything you want to talk about. And George Charleston says his favorite Stephen King movie is It. Which one, George? You like the old miniseries or the 2017 theatrical one? Our next comment comes from Thomas Kropp, and he says witchcraft, evil encounters. I think he means two different movies there, right? Or it surely doesn't mean. Thomas, are you talking about the witchcraft movies? Because those are terrible, man. There's like what? I think they're up to like 19 or 20 of those now. I don't know. Hell, they may be up to 30 or 40 by now. They started making them when I was in my early teens, and they're just like basic, like Cinemax type movies where it's got a soft horror plot line, but it's really like an excuse to make a porno. That's basically what it is. That whole series. So the first couple ones were okay. Scott Workman says The Uninvited from 1944, Lady in White 1988, The Old Dark House, all great picks. I'm glad you threw the Lady in White in there from 88. That's a pretty good one. And he also says Stir of Echoes, Oculus. Yeah, Stir of Echoes is one where I gotta say, if you like Stir of Echoes, if you like The Changeling, go seek out The Psychic from Lucio Fulci, 1977. You're gonna love that movie. Oculus is actually a movie that I like a lot. A lot of people don't like that movie for some reason, but I like it a lot. The haunted mirror thing, and I think it's pretty creepy the way it keeps you guessing what timeline you're in and what's actually happening, what's like a hallucination and all that. I thought it was pretty good. Housebound is a interesting little Australian film that starts out as a haunted house film, but becomes a whole lot more by the time it's over with. I think most people would love that. And The Frighteners, I don't know if that's specifically a haunted house movie, but yeah, it's a good movie. Brandy Nelson says Amityville. Of course, Amityville is always in the running as far as I'm concerned. Uh, Over here, George Charleston says he was talking about the old version of it. Jillian McAndrew says Amityville 2, The Possession. That's a great horror film. I like Amityville 2, The Possession. I think it's probably my favorite of the entire series. And there are just so many Amityville movies, guys. Listen to me on this. Amityville is a place, so it can't be copyrighted. And because of that, you have all these assholes that will go out here and shoot, a digital movie for like $2,000, and then they'll call it the Amityville Curse or Amityville Road. What was that really stupid one that came out here a while back? Amityville Mountain Road or some shit like that. It was fucking stupid. And, they put these out there under the guise that they're Amityville movies, but they're not. They have no connection to the original franchise. The only connection that they have to Amityville at all is that some asshole decided to write Amityville down on the title because half of the time they're not even shot in that area. So, yeah, don't fall for that. Amityville Asylum, Amityville Psycho, Amityville Plumbers Union. I don't know. If it says Amityville on it and then it's got like, something, a tagline after it, be very careful. The last real Amityville film they made was called Amityville: The Awakening. I think it was from 2018. And before that, the last real Amityville house movie they made was the remake in 2005. So all those other 10,000 ones they made in that time period are fake ass movies by people who are just trying to steal money from horror fans. It really aggravates me. It really pisses me off when they do that. It's like these people who go out and write self-published books, and they'll title it uh, Dracula's Maid, Frankenstein's Gardener. They'll piggyback off a classic, iconic horror image to create some crap that's nothing that nobody's not heard already, and then they self-publish it and they try to sell it to you for 60 cents because it's the Amazon book of the day that they can't sell to anybody for some reason. Yeah, I hate that. I hate that crap. I feel like those people are all trying to take advantage of horror fans. They want your hard-earned money. A lot of us are blue collar, right? Work normal jobs, and we don't have thousands and thousands of dollars to contribute to your shitty fan movie or your self-published book, or just your crap that you're trying to trick us with, trying to get our money with. But anyway, I digress. Stuff gets on my nerves. That's all I got to say about it. And Brandy Nelson said Amityville, and then Amy Kobian says Stir of Echoes and Haunted Honeymoon, which is one we had not seen yet. I like that nod there, Amy. Even though, like, is it really haunted? Is the honeymoon really haunted in that, or is it more like a werewolf type of situation? All I know is that my wife Regina occasionally will walk around the house and I'll hear her start singing. That's why, or that Ball and the Jack, whatever the hell that song is. She showed me the video like 10 million times, and I've seen the movie quite a few times myself. I'm a big Gene Wilder fan, Dom DeLuise, Gilda Radner. I love that movie, but I have not seen it as many times as Regina has because she can say it word for word and she can recite the entire song. Yeah. William Tugwell, Bill Tugwell, huh? He says following, and then Maddie R.J. Merrick says The Haunting from 1963. We've had that one in there a few times. And okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tell my story here. Around the time that the remake for The Haunting came out, my grandmother was living by herself. My great grandmother, by the way, was living by herself in this little town. She had a little house there, and I lived a couple blocks over, so I kind of made it my responsibility to go check on her, a couple times a day. I would drink coffee with her after I got off work or whatever, and I went over there one day and I was getting ready to go on a date, and I told her I was getting ready to go to the movies, and she just asked me like out of nowhere, like, "What are you going to see?" She's like 80 years old or 80, some plus years old then. And I said, "Well, I guess we're going to go see The Haunting because that's the only horror movie that was playing at that specific time, and I was always going to choose horror over anything else." So she said, "I want to go." And I'm like, "Well, Grandma, it's a scary movie." And she's like, "No." She's like, "I remember the another movie like that called The Haunting from 1963." And so I took her. I was like, she wants to go. She's old enough to decide whether she wants to go or not. So I took her with us. And we got there and we started watching the movie. And it got to the part where I can't remember who it is. I think it was Owen Wilson, and he's got the fire. Somebody had the fire poker, and they're poking through the ashes in the fireplace. And it looks like a skull. And when they pick it up, like the skull and the skeleton jumps at the screen. And when that happened, my like 82-year-old grandmother jumped about 4 foot in her seat, and instantly I became scared. I was like, what's going on here? I thought it was a good idea to bring my 82-year-old grandmother to a scary movie, to a jump scare movie, and I thought I'm having all this stuff going on in my mind. I'm going to explain to the rest of my family what the hell I was doing, what the hell I was thinking about. And I asked her if she wanted to leave, and she was into it. She was into the movie, and she didn't want to leave. So we stayed and we watched it. Everything was fine, but yeah, it was an interesting night for me. I think from the moment that she jumped and I realized like I thought I had made like a huge mistake at this point. I think I just watched her for the rest of the movie instead of watching the movie. Yeah, so that's the story I have about the Haunting. Zach Mattern says Amityville 2, and we talked about that. That's a great movie. Yeah. Amityville 2 Possession kind of tells the true story of the DeFeo murders, right? But not really. It's not the real story because they took a lot of liberties with the story, and even some of the stuff they did, like they imply the aspect of incest and stuff with the brother and sister. Yeah, I don't know if that's tasteful or not, considering you're really basically talking about a real family, but it's the '80s, man. It's the savage wasteland of horror films. And Christopher Youngblood says the Amityville Horror terrified me as a kid. I know the movie is heavily exaggerated from what really happened to the Lutzes. On its own, it's just still a scary haunted house flick. Yeah, I agree, man. I don't, like the first Amityville didn't really terrify me, but I got the message. You know what I mean? I don't know if anybody else felt like this, but for me, that Amityville movie, the original Amityville horror, is kind of like the Jaws of the haunted house movie. That's the way I think of it. It's the Jaws of the haunted house movie because it may, if Jaws made you not want to go in the water, then the Amityville horror will make you not want to go in your fucking house, right? It'll definitely make you wary of realtors. I think that's what the Amityville horror did. Mostly, it put a real hurt on Century 21. All right, George Charleston says I thought John Ritter played good in it, and Tim Curry played Pennywise really good. Yeah, I like the original miniseries. I love the cast all the way around. And John Ritter's character Ben is my favorite. Actually, Ben Hanscom. He's my favorite character in the whole thing because I love the whole story about how he's has all these things he has to overcome in his life, and he doesn't just get the girl; he kind of has to fight for her a little bit. And I like that. Um, Simply Mrs. J says, "What are your thoughts on the Babadook?" Oh, I hate that movie. I don't, I try not to hate anything, but I just don't like Babadook. I just don't. I like the first time I watched that movie, I felt like I figured it out 5-10 minutes into the film, and then they made me watch it for another hour and a half or hour and 40 minutes or whatever, just to tell me that I was right about what I figured out. And that kid is so annoying that it's not worth it. I get it that it all plays into a bigger, thing, and that it's important that he is annoying because it adds to her problems. But at the same time, it's just like I can't deal with it, man. That that kid should be shown to every high school class in America during health. Like this is why you don't have unprotected sex. This, not syphilis, not HIV or whatever. This is why you don't have unprotected sex because this is the worst possible thing that could happen to you, right? This kid is terrible, and if you have one and you kill it, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. So you don't want to have one like this anyway. And there's no guarantees that yours won't be like this. So yeah, I think it would be great to be shown in high schools all across America. And George Charleston says the axe murders of Vasilia. Yeah, that's an interesting film from a few years back. But that's all the comments we got, guys. And I had fun talking about this tonight. Quick one tonight, 37 minutes, but we had fun. And so we have 2 days left on our giveaway. If you want to win Friday the 13th, the series, season 1, season 2, and season 3, go to our description below in the video and check out our Patreon page. If you donate as little as $2 a month to the channel, we will put you in the drawing every month, the first of every month. This month, we're giving away Friday the 13th, the series, season 1, 2, and 3. And then next month, we're giving away 2 Blu-rays, and we're going to give away 2 Blu-rays each month after that on the 1st. So if you want to be entered in all those drawings, all you have to do is donate $2 a month to the channel. Go down to the description below, click the link, and if you want to, there's still time. You got today's the 30th. You got today, tomorrow, and then we're doing it on around 7 o'clock on the around 7 o'clock on the 1st. Yeah, 7 p.m. that night. So if you want to get in on it, there you go. And guys, I had fun. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for listening to me. And as always, I will talk to you the next time we got something we're talking about. Bye.